Hello and thanks for staying on LN 24/7. This is Politics Now. My name is Mono Balagogo. It's the Christmas season. Merry Christmas to all our viewers. And I know that a lot of people are not in celebratory mode because of the stampedes that occurred first in Oyo State, then Abuja and Anambra. We want to send our sincere condolence to everyone who lost a family member, a relative, or a loved one. Our sincere condolences go out to you today. Well, our focus today would hinge on the 2025 budget proposal by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu made to the National Assembly. Let's give you a rundown of our talking points. First, we'll unpack sector allocations and then make sense of budget parameters. How will it work? How feasible is the total budget? And also how budget will impact lives of Nigerians. If we have enough time, we'll also look at reps' proposed exclusions. Who are those affected, and what's going to be the case of how they're going to fund their various agencies? Well, joining us to make sense of all of this is an economist, Dr. Samson G. Simon. He is the Chief Economist, ARC Economics Data Limited, and a member of the Nigerian Economic Society, the Royal Economic Society, and the American Economic Association. Later today on the program, we'll also look at Edo politics, quite a lot happening in there. We'll look at the local government accountability. That's our first talking point. We'll also talk about the suspension of local government chairmen and the probe of Obaseki's administration. Joining us later today is Christopher Ojekere, PDP chieftain. He is the chairman of Edo State PDP Equity Coalition. We'll take a quick breather. When we come back, we'll unpack all of this. Just stay with us. So we kickstart with the 2025 budget proposal. President Bola Tinubu unveiled the federal government's 2025 budget proposals to the National Assembly, christening the budget of restoration, securing peace, rebuilding prosperity. With a record outlay of 49.7 trillion naira, this ambitious financial plan by the president aims to consolidate economic reforms, restore macroeconomic stability, foster inclusive growth, reduce poverty, and promote equitable income distribution alongside human capital development. The president prioritized security infrastructure, education, food production, health, reflecting an understanding of Nigeria's core challenges. The largest allocation, looking at 4.9 trillion or 9.8% is earmarked for security. That's quite a lot of the monies. And infrastructure 4.06 trillion, education 3.52, and health 2.48. We have the infographics there, so you can just look at some of the key sector allocations by the presidency made to the federal government. Of course, the National Assembly would have time, but people are saying they don't really have enough time because the year is already wrapped up. So will it just be a smooth approval? It has scaled up our second reading at the Senate. So, of course, over this week, we'll get more details about the 2025 budget. Well, in the proposal, Tinubu noted that the government expected 34.82 trillion naira in revenue, leaving a deficit of 13.39 trillion, representing a 3.89% of Nigeria's gross domestic product. He explained that the deficit would be financed through borrowing, stressing that this approach is necessary to achieve the government's developmental goals. Well, there's been a slew of reactions. We'll start with Atiku Abubakar critiquing the budget proposal made by President Bola Tinubu, and he said that the budget reflected the continuation of business as usual fiscal practices, a trend he claimed had persisted under the All Progressives-led administration since 2016. He argued that these practices had led to repeated budget deficits and increasing dependence on external borrowing. Well, you can be rest assured that the presidency will tackle that one. Well, the president in his budget speech mentioned salient parameters which includes, we have the infographic. First off, 2.6 million barrels of oil production per day. Is that feasible given the current situation of the oil and gas industry? We'll get to that with our guests. And also pegging of exchange rate at 1,500 naira to a US dollar, and inflation rate of 15%, down from the current 34.6%. Will that take a miracle? Well, as this is just a proposal, the House of Representatives Public Committee has called for the removal of some agencies like the National Examination Council, the University of Ibadan, Federal Ministry of Labor and Employment, and 21 other ministries, saying that this followed the repeated failures to account for previous budgetary allocations and internally generated revenues. If we have enough time, we'll talk about that. Well, let's get straight to the conversation. Enough talk. Joining us all the way from the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, is Dr. Simon. Thank you for your time on the show.
Thank you for having me.
All right, Doctor, let's start with your overview of the budget proposal made by President Bola Tinubu.
The budget presented by President Tinubu to National Assembly is quite ambitious in the sense that we have never had a budget this humongous in nominal terms. We're talking about a budget of 47.96 trillion naira. So that's a lot of naira packed into our budget. But in real terms, it may not even be the biggest in recent times. That's if you adjust for exchange rate and you adjust for inflation, you realize that it's not really that big. And for a country of over 200 million people, the resources, the budget might be too small to cater to the needs of this large population. So the president wants this budget passed so that the implementation can start on the first day of next year. That's the budget cycle in Nigeria is 1st of January to 31st of December. And they want to stick to the budget cycle without allowing delays, room for delays whatsoever. And the revenue is in the region of 34 trillion. The deficits are around 13 trillion. So this was feel important. Military and defense, which got the largest allocation. Then talking about which also got second. And then you talk about education and healthcare. However, I have a problem with the fifth agriculture. Nigeria has a serious problem. What's that serious problem? Hunger. If you ask my Yoruba brothers, they tell you, that there is hunger. There is hunger in the land. And if you are going to fix hunger, if you are going to fix agriculture, if you are going to solve the problem of hunger, is by fixing agriculture. And I don't think 800 billion is enough to fix agriculture in Nigeria. Nigeria is the worst place on earth at the moment when it comes to affordability of food. And it's one of the worst places in terms of availability. That means food is not affordable and is not available. And it's not just by paying lip service. Last year, the authorities declared state of emergency on food insecurity. Not just perfunctory declaration, because nothing tangible that was really done, nothing that actually moves the needle has actually been done, because this hunger started a long time. It got worse last year, and is even getting, this year is even worse than last year. So there's a need for concrete results. And one of the ways of tackling the problem with agriculture is insecurity, which the government is giving priority to security and defense, but we hope that we'll see tangible results. But another thing is mechanization. I feel 800 billion naira is not enough to help mechanize agriculture. It's not even enough to move the needle. Somebody will say, oh, look, at least they have started something. In my view, they have not even started anything. Because if you understand the pangs of hunger, if you understand people are dying because they have gone to collect free foods all over the country. So you know how bad the situation is. You're trying to exchange your life for a muscle of courage. It doesn't make sense. So it really calls for emergency, serious emergency, not just nominal declaration of state of emergency. We need to fix agriculture, and we need to fix it urgently, and the urgency is of now.
Now, talking about real terms, that this budget is less than that of 2024 and even 2022 from a report I saw earlier today. How will this budget be financed given the allocations to various sectors? I mean, these figures are quite higher. I mean, education is at an all-time high in terms of allocation.
Well, we are celebrating nominal achievements. There are still achievements. They're still better than achievements. It could have been worse if both on nominal terms and on real terms were retrogressive. So if there is something that is worth celebrating, no matter how not really being effective, in the sense that there's what you call money illusion in economics. You think you have more money, in the real sense, you have less. So we're trying to celebrate progress, no matter how the progress is, whether it's nominal or real. In real terms, we might not be making progress. And in my view, that's what really matters. But if you look at it nominally, we are making progress. It may not seem like worth celebrating, but I'm trying to look at the bright side of things, no matter how nominal, how insignificant many people may think it is. I feel like, well, no matter the progress, I think it was Martin Luther King that said, if you cannot fly, run. If you cannot run, walk. If you cannot walk, crawl. But by all means, make progress. So that's what I'm trying to celebrate. I know in real terms, it may not amount to much. In constant prices, it may not amount to much. But in current prices, we have made progress, no matter how insignificant others might think.
Now, Dr. Simon, when we talk about budgeting, I'm pretty curious to find out how globally inflation impacted this proposal.
Well, you know, when they projected the inflation for this 2024, when they were passing last year's budget, most of us said, no, it doesn't look feasible. It doesn't look feasible. And the same thing for 2025 is even more ambitious now, about 15%. At the moment, we're doing 34.6 headline inflation. And what exactly is not just, we're not saying achieving 15% is completely impossible. What exactly are we going to do different? Is Albert Einstein has said insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. What exactly are we going to do different in 2025 that will help us to achieve this inflation of 15% that we couldn't achieve a much higher rate in 2024? I don't think anything much has been done. We are experiencing unprecedented levels of money supply. And why we're experiencing that? Because we have expansionary fiscal policy. And these expansionary fiscal policies, they work at cross purposes with the monetary policies, because monetary policies are, the monetary authorities are embarking on contractionary policies, which would be the appropriate thing when you have inflation, while the fiscal authorities, instead of them to coalesce and synergize, they are working at cross purposes. And that's why you have money supply, that when you hike interest rates, when you embark on contractionary policies, money supply is supposed to reduce and ultimately inflation is tamed. We're not seeing that because they are working at cross purposes. And an expansionary budget that we cannot even afford in 2025. So most of us don't see inflation coming to 15%, let alone coming to target. The target in Nigeria is 6 to 9%. Globally, is even 2%. So we are way, way, way off target. And the likelihood of even achieving that 15% is not really there. It looks just fanciful. The chances are almost zero of achieving that. I don't know why we don't want to be realistic in our budgeting. We put in things that we know for sure, or almost for sure, we are not likely going to achieve. So the target for inflation is unlikely going to be the case. And if you look at the inflation, it's being fueled primarily by food inflation. What exactly are we doing to next to nothing? So it doesn't really make sense in my view.
All right, Dr. Simon, let's look at some of the parameters driving this budget. First is the exchange rate pegged at 1,500 to the US dollar. Will this reduce the risk of having supplementary budgets?
Well, at least the exchange rate for 2025 budget, the difference is just maybe 200 naira or so. Last year's one, it was just outrageous. It was scandalous because exchange rate was approaching 2,000, and you're talking about 800, which was not really reasonable. I don't know why they did that, but it really didn't make sense. It was not. It was completely off the mark. But this year's, the possibility of achieving while foreign exchange reserves are becoming bigger. I know Nigerians will say we have not seen tangible results, but for us, is it tangible results? The authorities are determined. We will do something. We may not get exactly 1,005, but we can get something close. And, you know, we export more than we import. But not determinizes as important as export. You know, Nigerians like to demonize import. I'm not in that arc. Imports are as important as exports. I feel like compared to our population, because import is as important as export. So, and consumption is also as important as production. So we are exporting more than we're importing. So that should also help to strengthen the naira. And then again, our exchange, our anchor rate, our interest rate is very high. That will attract capital into our economy. It might be hard money, but money will come in, money will pour in, and that will matter. I don't know if we will actually get 1,005, but so far the fundamentals seem to favor the naira improving in value if things continue on the same trajectory.
Now, will this pegged exchange rate, I want you to still ask the question, will it reduce the likelihood of us having supplementary budgets?
I don't think that will reduce the possibility of a supplementary budget. I remember one of the reasons for the supplementary budget was the new minimum wage. So I don't think there's anything really on the horizon that warrants a supplementary budget. But should it arise, then we might have a supplementary. So we cannot rule out having a supplementary budget simply because the exchange rate on the budget is closer to reality than what we had last year. So I think supplementary budget, the possibility of having a supplementary budget is a 50-50 thing. It could happen, the reasons might arise, but for now, I think we should just make the most of the 2025 budget, and even for the 2024 budget, that the implementation has been extended to the end of June 2025.
So let's move on to 2.06 million barrels per day. Quite ambitious. How does this factor into the feasibility of the budget, given that, I mean, crude oil drives, you know, more of our revenue generation aside tax?
Output, it will really help fund the budget, and that's why the revenue expected from selling crude oil is way bigger than what it would. You have a lot of money, so it's going to help fund the budget. But that possibility of actually producing 2.06 million barrels is as remote as they come. The chances of getting that are slim. But there's nothing wrong with being ambitious. Maybe they have a plan, they have a strategy on achieving that. So we should give them the benefit of the doubt. But if you look at the way things are now and concerning history, the possibility is really slim. I think they're just being over ambitious when it comes to that.
Now, let's talk about borrowing. You can't separate budgeting with borrowing. The budget's reliance on borrowing raises red flags at $33.13 billion. Now, how in much would we be borrowing in contrast to how much we generate, given the fact that we are paying so much more of the revenues to pay debt?
The truth be told, they have been paying back a lot of the money we borrowed, but they have also been accumulating a lot of debts. If you look at it, even we're talking about the foreign exchange reserves, they're becoming bigger is because we're selling bonds and we're selling treasury bills and so on. And we have to pay back all these things. And we're borrowing from multilateral agencies like the World Bank and the IMF and the African Development Bank and so on and so forth. So as much as we are paying back loans, we're also accumulating more. So if you look at it, in my view, they basically balance out. I know in dollar terms, our debts might have come down, right? But in other terms, they have been accumulating. And because the GDP size has really become smaller, our debt to GDP is reaching unsustainable levels. So I think we should, as much as possible, we should reduce the extent of the borrowings. Because if you look at it, because we are owing so much, we have a lot of debts, we have a lot of loans. We're allocating 1/3 of the budget to debt servicing. 1/3 of our budget, almost 1/3 of the budget is going to debt servicing, and that's really bad. That's really bad. So what you are using for debt service is more than the four most important priorities of the budget. Talking about defense and security, talking about infrastructure, talking about education, talking about healthcare, and even if you add agriculture, all of them combined are not up to what we are using to service our debt. So that's to tell you that we are in a tight fiscal space, and they keep borrowing. I know we on paper we say borrowing is not bad, it's what you use the money for that really matters. But we know that we have not been really good with using the money we're borrowing. And at this particular time, we don't need an expansionary budget because inflation should take precedence over anything else. And when you're embarking on expansionary fiscal policy, that stops inflation from being tackled. I think that should be the priority for now. Let's bring prices to target. Let Nigerians have their misery be reduced by bringing inflation to target. Then when inflation is largely within target, then we can start stimulating growth. But for now, the fiscal authorities and the monetary authorities are working at cross purposes. And by embarking on deficit budgeting, and when the misery of Nigerians is going through the roof, I don't think you can pat yourself on the back and say they have done well. When they would afford it. So I think we should prioritize fighting inflation. The war on inflation should take precedence over anything else, in my view. Then when we bring price to target, then we can talk about stimulating the economy to grow and expand.
Now, Doctor, we can talk about the economics, what's right and what's not right, but in reality, how will this alleviate the lives of every Nigerian? You recall the budget of Renewed Hope, 2023 budget, was stunted to do this and all of that with all the social investment schemes, but Nigerians are still hungry. You look at the stampedes in Oyo State, in Anambra and Abuja. How will this impact lives? How will economic hardship subside?
Achieving 15% is impossible. But considering the budget that we have, considering the fact that the principal policies, the macroeconomics, so the monetary and fiscal, are canceling each other out, then I don't see how 15% will be achieved. And mind you, the key driver of headline inflation is food. What exactly are we doing to ensure sufficient food supply for Nigerians? Next to nothing. Allocating 800 billion to it is not enough. It will not move the needle. It's as good as a drop of water in the ocean. It doesn't do anything. So 15% can achieve that, or if we can achieve our target of 69%, that would be so lovely, that would be remarkable. I think if the president would just use the entire year to achieve that, in my view, that would be an exceptional achievement. But the way things are now, Nigerians, if you look at the misery is just too much. And it's principally because of inflation. Principally because of inflation. And everything, I believe that all resources need to be deployed to tackle inflation. Everything should be done. All hands must be on deck to tackle inflation. And I don't think that's really the case at the moment. So there's a need to do something urgently too. And distributing rice, by the way, will not end the poverty or the hunger that Nigerians are going through. Just tackle inflation. Tackle inflation, and a lot of things will be better. If the Naira has purchasing power, people will be better off. Everybody is struggling. Even people that are relatively well off are struggling. So can you only imagine those ones that are living in backwater, how they are really coping? So I feel it's a big indictment on our leaders. That might be doing some things right, but nothing that actually moves the needle. I keep using the word, the phrase move the needle, because that's what really matters. If you say you're doing something and people are not seeing results, then it's as good as not doing anything. The results are actually what matter. And I think all our leaders need to take that into account.
Once again, thank you so much, Doctor, for your time. We've got to move on to another conversation, talking about the politics. Thank you for being with us, sir.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's move on. We'll take a quick breather first. When we come back, so much to unpack with Edo politics. Stay with us.
What makes the political system what it is today? What are the recurring issues?
Order.
The tussle for power.
An extremely problematic area.
The tension. The instability of the system. Join Ellen 24/7 as we take you inside the local and international political arena in the world of politics.
Apologize for saying that I was corrupt.
I'm not here to call out his lies. Everybody knows he's a liar.
Watch politics now on Ellen 24/7.
Don't miss Politics Now on Ellen 24/7.
Many thanks for staying with us. We move on with Edo politics. Let's give you a rundown of our talking points. We're looking at local government accountability, suspension of local government chairman, and the probe of Obaseki's administration. Christopher Ojekere joins us shortly, but let's bring you up to speed with the development. The decision to suspend local government chairman and vice chairman in Edo State has ignited a constitutional debate, with critics questioning the legality of the move in the light of the Supreme Court's landmark judgment affirming local government autonomy. Well, the suspension announced after allegations of insubordination and failure to submit financial reports by Governor Monday Okpebholo against the local government chairman has been defended by the Edo State government. Now, the administrative panel of inquiry set up by Governor Okpebholo argued that the state acted within its constitutional authority, as the Supreme Court ruling, which guaranteed local government autonomy, cannot override the Nigerian Constitution, which created a role for the governor and the state assembly to provide oversight in the affairs of the council. But oversight, does it mean suspension? How do you oversight by suspending? That's the thing that legal luminaries are trying to make sense of. Now, of course, stakeholders have pointed to the Supreme Court's clear pronouncements on local government autonomy. The court's judgment unequivocally stated that state governments cannot dissolve or interfere in the affairs of democratically local councils, declaring such actions unconstitutional and void. To back this up, the Attorney General of the Federation, AGF, and Minister of Justice, Chief Lateef Olasukomi Fagbemi, also weighed pleading describing the suspension as illegal, saying under the present dispensation, the governor has no right to remove any local government chairman. In fact, the misstated, referencing the Supreme Court's ruling, the removal of any local government official is the exclusive prerogative of the council's legislative house. So subsequently, a high court in Benin, Edo State, approved an application to reinstate the 18 local government chairpersons and their deputies suspended in the state. The court instructed the defendants, the governor, Edo State government, the Attorney General of Edo State, amongst others, to refrain from implementing the resolution of the House of Assembly that allegedly suspended them. Well, joining us to make sense of all this is Christopher Ojekere, who joins us live a video call from Edo State. Thank you so much for being with us, Christopher.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Honorable, let's get right to it. I mean, there are just different kinds of argument, regarding what is right in terms of what the law says about the suspension of this local government chairman. One will want to make sense of the fact that the governor who just came in, shouldn't he be focusing on the matters at hand rather than digging back into the past?
All right. First to say that the constitution guiding my state is the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which, of course, takes precedence over all other laws that might, be in place, whether enacted by state or houses of assembly or whatever other bylaws. Now, the governor had made a request that, first of all, wasn't in his constitutional power to do so. He was meddling in the power of the legislative arm of government. And to add to that, he was also asking for an account for a lengthy period he wasn't in office. He, first of all, is the House of Assembly by the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria under the old arrangement and up until now that has some form of authority to oversee the activities of local government and local government chairmen. That is solely a legislative function. It's not an executive function. So when the governor requested for them to submit almost 2 years, from 2023, September, I think September 2023, up until this moment, that they should submit the statement of account, I think the local government chairman was still searching for where he has the constitutional power to do so, until he thought that they were not responding to his draconian order by fiat, and then did the most absurd thing he did. So it wasn't within the purview of the governor to ask for those accounts. It would have been the House of Assembly that would have asked for those statements if there was any need to do so. He now went to the absurd. He suspended the local government chairman by fiat as if it's a military edict. Now, the Attorney General of the Federation had gone now to say that he has no right to do that, and the local government chairman, by any stretch of imagination, no state government has the right to suspend the tier of government, to suspend local government chair, which agrees with the 1999 Constitution. As a third tier of government, they are elected representatives, and until their tenure is over, you cannot suspend them. That was being abused for a long time until the July 11th judgment of the Supreme Court, which is the extant law as it is right now in Nigeria, that you don't have any right to truncate local government administration or to suspend local government by any stretch of imagination. You can't even appoint caretaker committee. So what they have done in their ignorance and foolishness is to say that they suspended them for 2 months. So in those 2 months vacuum, what are you going to have? You're either going to have committees, caretaker committee, or caretaker or appointee to run a position where elected executives have been suspended from. Isn't that the highest form of confusion you can think of from people who say they are running a state? So that's the situation right now. It drew widespread condemnation and backlash from all over the country. And that just shows you the kind of charlatan. So we are congratulating President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who had assured them in the past that he was going to give Edo State back to them. I think they interpreted his promise literally, and that is why they go up and down doing this kind of, impunity, hoping and thinking that the president will support them in it. So the president should know that when he makes utterances, the people who are going to act on those utterances He cannot tell the extent to which they want to go. They have thrown Edo State into confusion. Now, I think it's time for the president to address them, to let them know that they should play by the rules in these few months that they're going to be occupying space in Edo State.
Now, it seems to me the AGF is speaking for the presidency. Do you see the federal government intervening like it did in the Rivers local government funding case? Because the High Court in Edo State has ruled in favor of the suspended local government chairman.
Certainly, the weighty intervention of the Attorney General of the Federation has a lot of influence, in the decisions that will be taken next. But to our great surprise and shock, and that is why I was referring to the president, a chieftain of the APC, Kazeem Afebo, has taken on the Attorney General of the Federation in a very mockery and in a very mocking and in a very belittling manner. In fact, he said the Attorney General of the Federation is just playing to the gallery. That he rushed to the press without finding out the facts. I mean, it's viral. I can send you the articles. It's viral. It's everywhere. So that's why I was referring to the president, because the president does not know that the interpretation of what he promised them will snowball into this kind of, stubborn attitude, this kind of, what do you call it now? They just become lost unto themselves. And they think that they can do anything and get the president's backing. Imagine the chieftain of the APC taking on the Attorney General, who is an SAN in law. I was trying to school the SAN on what he thinks is the legal position of the illegality that they have done. He was trying to rely on what he called our state local government laws of 2000, quoting Section 20, which has nothing at all to support or validate what he's saying, but trying to be clever. He said as a result of that, the governor sat down with the legislature. Is the governor the chief speaker? We have the speaker of the house. If the governor thinks that the local government chairman of Edo State have infracted on that section, all he needed to do was to point it out. He said he sat down with them and then they agreed. And then they now sent a letter to the house as a result of that. And the house called them. And then the house now took on that highly unconstitutional role of suspending. So what they just wanted to do was to frame the house in that which they have ordered the house to do. Whether they ordered the house, whether the house did it or not, by the law of the land, which is the Federal Republic Constitution of 1999, as amended, there is no law that supersedes that, and there's no law that supersedes the pronouncement of the Supreme Court that you cannot truncate, you cannot suspend, you cannot expel the third tier of government, which is the local government. So they have no position to stand. I am saying that the president should call them to order and warn them that in the short time that they are going to be there, they should ensure that they run by the tenets of democracy and the rule of law, so that they don't throw the state into the kind of confusion they have put us in the past few days. That's where we are.
Quite interesting. Now, how is the PDP working to challenge this suspension?
We went to court immediately. After we have issued several statements, we went to court immediately, and as I speak to you now, there's a judgment of the Federal High Court in Edo State restating the local government chairman. So by Monday, our local government chairman are supposed to return to work, and until there cannot be in Nigeria another superior judgment, because the judgments of the Supreme Court already supersedes and is in favor of the local government chairman. What we are only expecting is that in their usual form, they might send thugs, and because police will not obey them now, because the police knows where the presidency stands on this. But they are even defying the presidency. Because if the president, the Attorney General of the Federation, who is the #1 law officer appointed by the president, have come out to show you the position of the law supported by the Constitution and the pronouncement of the Supreme Court, and you can still come out to say that they remain suspended until you finish your investigation in 2 months. I mean, that borders on treason and sedition. So we are waiting to see whether by Monday they are going to send their thugs. You have a lot of lions and tigers in the district, to the local government area to beat up our local government chairman. And then we'll put that out before the world and see where we go from there. So by Monday, our local government chairman are going back to work.
Prior to this time, Governor Pebelu has made it clear that he's going to probe the past administration of Obaseki. Now, are you concerned on his fixation on the past rather than on the future?
primary concern would have been, and still the administration of the governor that left before he came in, the policies of the government and their execution, and how that complies with the constitution of the land. And so far, all the points he has raised has nothing to do with faulting policy or proving that the governor had embezzled money or whatever. They raised figures in the press, and if you ask three of them, they have three different figures on the same subject matter. They have not been able to show any documentation to that effect. They are just going up and down, breaking down all the policies of progression that the government have put in place. This local government has been one of their key, target of vendetta. And when they saw that they couldn't go around it, because they realized that there was no way they can prove that the local government was not an elected government, and there was no way they can lay their hands on the 800, million naira special ecological fund and that has just come in. They decided to go this route. So the governor has been very distracted, and that's because of the people who are around him, who all have vendetta. I don't think he personally has vendetta against Obaseki, except for the fact that during the election, Obaseki's people ridiculed him so much for his, cognitive deficiency and all that. But he didn't have a premeditated vendetta. The people around him, who are now chieftains of the APC, who help him in writing budgets he cannot read, and then giving him instructions like this one, or mandates like this one that embarrasses him and embarrasses the whole state. Now, that's what he's been busy doing. Rather than being focused, the last time I was on television here in Edo State, and I was asked to, he should be focused. He should set his own policies in place. You cannot operate on a vacuum. There was a government there. Whatever the government has done, there must be something to build on, something to expand, something to copy, and so on and so forth. That's what you do for the benefit of the state. You should not be focused on vendetta or against a governor that you have no personal grounds with. If you have personal grounds with, you have not told us. And in any case, Edo State government should not be about settling your personal grounds. It should be about what you will do for the people and leave a mark. Whether you're going to be there for 6 months, because the case has started in the tribunal honestly, and the odds are against them to follow strict legal process from the cases, from the judgments that hearings that we have followed. Now, if you are going to be there for 6 months, if God says you are going to be there for beyond 6 months, at least leave some mark instead of just going on the vendetta spree. So that's why I will still repeat that advice to him. That what he should do is he should win himself away from those people who crowd him and are telling him, misleading him now, because it's become a series of embarrassment. From one week to another, he comes out with a blunder, and the whole world is talking about it. The Edo State is now the most common state in the news from here to the international community. So it should do so. It should be in the news for good. It should be in the news for improvements, for policy directions, for new ideas in governance, and so on and so forth. It's in the news for the wrong reasons all the time, and that's not good for him, even as a person. It's not good for his political profile.
Now, still talking about his probe, he's been so vocal about vehicles, that were carted away, supposedly, allegedly, by the Obaseki administration, people he appointed into office. Let's talk about the ultimatum on the allegedly carted away vehicles. How do you make sense of that, given the fact that on this same program, you told us that the vehicles were allegedly carted away by Godwin Schweibel?
It's a branch of the vendetta spree, as I say. Obaseki ran a pooling system of vehicles. Commissioners didn't have private vehicles. No other person apart from his special advisor on media, and then the deputy governor had vehicles, what you call official vehicles. All commissioners, SAs, and so on and so forth. You go to the pool, we ran a pooling system where all the vehicles are pooled in the compound that belongs to the state government, and under it was an agency, a state vehicle management agency. So you applied if you wanted to use an official vehicle. Now, since they set up that committee to recover vehicles, the vehicles, if you follow the news that they've been chasing, people who served maybe in the first tenure of Obaseki, maybe has a boss in their possession, they will go there, embarrass those people, put it in the news, blow it open, as if these are the vehicles that they are referring to. All the other vehicles are there in the pool. Now, every time a government does auctions of vehicles, so there was an auctioning shortly before Obaseki left, and just one or two at least, they are actually able to spot the one of the commissioners who bought a vehicle. The commissioner has a picture that was rickety, which he had to spend a lot of money to repair and so on and so forth. They went and recovered it. They even went into Obaseki's own private home and broke into the home, broke not just the gate, but even broke the doors looking for vehicles inside the kitchen. Of course, they didn't say anything. So it's all hoopla, just to create an impression that there was sleaze or corruption in the government. There wasn't sleaze or corruption in Pakistan's government. The vehicles of Edo State are gathered in that pool. If you go there today, you see. What he did was that immediately he got in, he issued a 5 billion naira, contract for vehicle. And I understand he gave that to his cousin, who brought in new bulletproof cars. And he took most of the vehicles there and gave to his party people. That's why you see the state chairman talking the way he's talking, because the card the state chairman is using, which was given to him there, is the same card the governor is using. So the state chairman would rather kill you for that governor, because he never dreamt he could drive that kind of car in his life. So he has the car now, and that's all other political appointees have cars now, which wasn't any privilege of appointees enjoyed. So it's all lies. The thug he puts in charge of that tablestone, was in Obaseki's government until he was thrown out disgracefully when he was abusing the office. And so he found that kind of person that had the vendetta, and then he's using him to do all those dirty jobs. So they will trace a former functionary, not even the past immediate one, they would have left maybe in the first turn of Obaseki, and then bring their cameras and begin to create a lot of hoopla just to create that impression. Ask them how many vehicles have they recovered and name those you have recovered. They can't have more than 3 names. Not more than 3 names. And it's just, at least I've given you 2 of the occasions. I don't even know the third one.
All right, thank you so much, Chris, for your time on the show today. That's the much that we can take. And, of course, when we come your way again, that will be on Christmas Day. I'd say to you, Merry Christmas, and many thanks for watching Politics Now right here on LN 24/7. I want to shout out to my co-producer who works with me on the show, Luca Moses. Thank you so much for all the effort you put in right here on Politics Now. And also special shout out to my head of station, Madam Lara Oweyewise, for all the support all through the year 2024. Of course, we've still got a couple of shows to do before the year wraps up properly, because politics will still be happening, and we will definitely be covering it before the 1st of January 2024. And not to forget the highly esteemed director of LN 24/7, PTI. Thank you so much, sir, for all your support all through the year 2024. And that's our show today. See you on Christmas Day. Many thanks for watching.